All right, so you're on Amazon and you're looking for a cheap barefoot shoe. Which shoe should you go with? So I have three models up here that I have reviewed and I like for different reasons. I'll discuss why in this video. I have the WHITIN Hi-Top model, the AIRHAS model with the TPU, and then I have the knit AIRHAS model. All of these shoes I wear for daily wear and working out, so if you're looking for a cheap barefoot shoe for those needs as well, this video is for you. But now let's talk about my first pick. So the first shoe is the AIRHAS barefoot shoe. So three reasons why I like this model. Number one, it can be a really good budget-friendly shoe for daily wear and training if you need a shoe for slightly warmer climates. So of the other two shoes up here, this is going to be your warmest model. You have a TPU layering, the mesh is a little bit heavier, and if you live in a city or a place where the climate is a lot more moderate, this can be a great option to go with. The second reason why I like this shoe is if you have a narrower foot width and you don't want to be swimming in your barefoot shoe, because some barefoot shoes, they do run too big for certain foot anatomies, or the upper is just a little bit too loose. This can be a good option to go with. I categorize this barefoot shoe as being a pretty good model that works well for narrow and medium width to slightly wider foot widths. The third reason why I like this shoe is its performance for daily wear and training. So if you just need a barefoot shoe that is decent for lifting and some cross training here and there, and then also just wearing casually, this can be a pretty good model to go with. Now, a couple things to think about with this shoe before you invest in them. Number one, the TPU brake can be pretty annoying in the toe box of this shoe, so that is something to consider. If you're somebody that is prone to having this be an issue with your other shoes, definitely probably pass on this model and go with the other two in this video. The second thing to think about with this shoe is the tongue is not gusseted, so it can slide at times. So for certain cross training settings, this can be very annoying. That's also why I don't necessarily like doing advanced plyos in this shoe or any form of running, because this tongue just gets annoying. It presses the top of the foot, it slides down. It's just not fun to deal with. The third thing to consider with this shoe is if you have an exceptionally wide and flat foot, you might want to pass on this shoe. 3E plus width feet, pass on this shoe, and flat feet, you're probably not going to love this rubber arch in this shoe. It can feel pretty aggressive in that midfoot. Now, when it comes to sizing of this model, if you have a narrow, medium to slightly wider foot width, true to size should be the call. Again, if you have a flat foot or a 3E plus foot width, pass on the shoe entirely. The next shoe I want to cover, and this is my second pick in this video, is the AIRHAS knit barefoot shoe. So this is the more superior model to the first shoe discussed. However, it's not going to be as warm, and so that's where I do think that first model does take a slight edge, is if you live in a moderate climate that's a little bit more damp and cold, that might be the call, because with the knit shoe, obviously you're not going to get the same level of breathability. Now, three things to like with this shoe. Number one, if you want a barefoot shoe that you can wear sockless or with socks, this can be a really comfortable model to go with. The knit upper in this shoe breaks in pretty easily after you break this tongue in for about a week or two. The knit up here doesn't have a weird break like the Primus Light knit does from Vivobarefoot, so I do appreciate that with this shoe. And the boot back here has a bit of padding, so it locks the foot down really well for sock and sockless wear. Some barefoot shoes that are knit that you wear sockless, they can kind of slide around in the boot, and this model doesn't really have that issue, which I appreciate. The second thing to like with this shoe is the knit upper. I think just feels very comfortable and breathable, especially in hotter settings. If you train in warmer gyms and you love knit shoes, this can be a great option to go with. I also see them as a really good summer shoe that you can just kind of beat up and wear out and about, and they breathe really well too. The third thing to like with this model is their performance for lifting and cross training and just general daily wear. From a lifting context, the shoe works really great for strength and hypertrophy workouts, and if you're doing more static stuff like deadlift or machine exercises like leg press and hack squat, this model can work really great. The outsole grips really well. You could take this insole out and get even close to the ground for more ground feel, and it's a pretty good shoe for that context. For cross training, the shoe can also work. It feels very sporty, but do keep in mind that with knit uppers, you're not going to have as much security, so you might have a bit more spillover in this model as you get more serious with your advanced plyos and side-to-side work. So definitely keep in mind that there is going to be a little bit of a cap with the shoe with its performance. Now, some things to think about with this shoe before investing in them is number one, if you have an exceptionally flat and wide foot, this model, similar to the first AIRHAS model, is not going to be your best bet. You do have a pretty pointed toe box up here, and you have an aggressive medial sidewall, so it can feel pretty jarring for flatter midfoot. So if you have a very flat foot, you hate arch in your shoes, that would definitely be something to consider with this model before investing in them. And then number two, there will be a threshold in which this knit is going to lose some of that security for training. So for example, this is not my favorite barefoot shoe for doing really heavy cleans, or I'm going to be having the feet come out and catching weight, or for anything really aggressive like side to side in the sprint focus, just because this knit upper can feel a bit loose at times. Now, when it comes to sizing, narrow, medium, and slightly wider foot widths should be safe going true to size in this shoe. Similar to that first model, if you have a 3E width foot or a very flat foot, I would say pass on this shoe entirely. The final shoe is the WHITIN Hi-Top barefoot shoe. So this is the knit model, and the low top model also works really well, but I tend to actually wear the high top model a little bit more, and it's my favorite pick in this video if you want one of these shoes. Now, granted, if you want a low top shoe from this video and you're not a fan of high top models, go with the knit model. Again, it's gonna be the stronger performer of the two AIRHAS shoes. But 3 things to like with this shoe is, number 1, I think the appearance is really clean for a very cheap barefoot shoe. So with this model, you don't really have any branding. Sans a tiny bit of branding up here on the tongue, so it looks really clean. And honestly, this shoe is very easy to wear with shorts or pants. And if you like high top models, I think it does have a nice casual look. I've actually gotten a lot of compliments when wearing this shoe, which, you know, I'm always surprised when I'm like reviewing shoes and somebody's like, those are really cool shoes, what are they? This has been one of those shoes that I've gotten a decent amount of compliments with at the gym and just when wearing them out and about to grab coffee and stuff. The second thing to like with this shoe is it can be a really good beginner barefoot shoe. So with this model, you have a removable insole, but the sole's a little bit thicker in the shoe compared to other barefoot shoes. And so for contrast, with the AIRHAS shoe, you have a slightly flatter sole, but you have lugs in this model, so it does give it a bit more of a cushioned ride. So for beginners getting into barefoot shoes, this can be a really good option to go with, especially for a low budget price point. The third thing to like with this shoe is if you want a high top barefoot shoe for daily wear, but then also some lifting, this can be a good option to go with. This model has worked well for my strength and hypertrophy workouts, and it can work for some cross training. Do keep in mind it's got a knit upper, so it's not going to give you the most upper security. And with this boot here, I actually prefer wearing mine a little bit loose, and so if you want to tighten them down, they will give you more security. But this can be one of those barefoot shoes that you can wear looser, slide in your foot and go train in them, and then just keep that how it is and not have to necessarily always mess with your high top shoe. Some high top shoes you have to unlace every single time, and that can be quite annoying, not gonna lie. This is one of those shoes that's a nice exception. What I do, pro tip, is I don't go with the top eyelet. I leave it a little bit looser, and it tends to work pretty well. Now, some things to think about with this shoe. Number 1, look, if you need a barefoot shoe for more serious training, this is likely not gonna be your best bet, and the low top model 2 is not gonna be your best bet because the upper security isn't the best. You'll wanna look at one of the AIRHAS shoes in this video for that need. Number 2, the tongue in this model is not gusseted, so it can slide at times, and if you wear them loose like me, you gotta kind of expect that tongue might move a little bit, and so if that irks you, you're gonna have to crank your laces tight to get more security so it doesn't move as much, but again, it still might slide just a little bit because there is no gusset there. The third thing to think about with this shoe, if you go with one of the wider colorways in this knit material, is it's not the easiest to clean. So with this shoe, I have tried my best to keep them in really good condition, but if you're living in a city and it's constantly dirty and damp and whatnot, that would definitely be something to consider with this knit material because it can be a pain in the butt to clean and you have to throw them in the wash machine, and then that could also accelerate the breakdown of the shoe. So definitely some food for thought there depending on where you are rocking the shoe for casual wear. Now when it comes to sizing in this shoe, this model actually has a wider width throughout and there's less of an aggressive midfoot here on the medial side. And so that said, if you have a narrow, medium, or wider foot, even if you're a 3E, even towing the line of 4E foot width, you should be okay going true to size in this shoe. For 3 and 4E, if you want to play it safe, going up a half size, I don't think would be a bad call in this model. All right, guys, that wraps up my budget Amazon barefoot shoe video. I think if you're looking into these 3 shoes for training and daily wear, I would say proceed. They work pretty dang well for most contexts, and I think there is a bit of an ebb and flow of performance between these shoes, so use this video as your guide. And if you have additional questions, drop a comment down below and I can help you out accordingly. But all that to say, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.